Well, welcome to day 22 of Read Daily, and congratulations if you've made it this far. You've made it onto chapter 3 of the book of Titus, and we're going to take this devotion as an opportunity to do a bit of a recap of chapter 2 and what we've been learning so far throughout our Read Daily series. In chapter 1, we were reminded of why Titus was left in Crete. Remember, he was told by the Apostle Paul to put what remained in order. In chapter 1, we were given an indication as to how Titus should do that. He was to establish godly leaders and rebuke all false teaching. But in chapter 2, Paul was showing how the responsibility of gospel transformation wouldn't just involve the elders and leaders like Titus. Rather, it was going to be a whole church project. All Christians, by virtue of their relationship with Christ, would be a part of restoring Crete for the gospel through their new way of life. That's why chapter 2 begins with Paul addressing different types of people within the church and the role that they play within discipleship and witness. Paul addresses older men, older women, younger men, younger women, and slaves also. Each of these people groups, just like the elders in chapter 1, are given standards by which they should attempt to live by way of living the life God has called them to. As you read the chapter, you'll see the call for people within the church to be self-controlled, sound in faith, loving, pure, submissive, and so on and so forth. In other words, the gospel is to be lived out not just by elders, but by everyone. Paul's establishing how the gospel affects the nitty-gritty aspects of everyday life by everyday people. Godliness wasn't, as the Cretans had come to believe, just some external blanket with which you could cloak yourself by way of man-made regulations and rules. No, godliness is a transformation from the inside out. Here, godliness would be visible 24/7, 365 days a year. It was for the whole life and for every Christian, not just for a few hours and for a few leaders shut away inside the church somewhere. But how is this sort of holiness possible? As you read of those Christian virtues that we see in chapter 2 of faith and love and goodness, you would love to be more like that, no doubt, and so would I as a Christian. How is it possible? Well, Paul tells us in verse 11, "For the grace of God has appeared." You might remember the second half of chapter 2, Paul goes on to explain that holiness is brought about by the gospel itself. Grace is the transforming power that enables holy living to be made possible. The gospel isn't just the key to your salvation, it's the key to your sanctification. Do you want to live a more holy life? Don't just make a good list of good things to do and try to obey them as best you can. That's exactly what the Cretans did. Rather, remind yourself daily of the gospel of grace. Allow it to win your heart and align your heart with that of God's.